Hope the future generations can get this urge. Stay woke, youngin', and avenge these nerds.
Welcome back, guys, to a special edition of Nerds Around. I'm your host, Sebastian.
It's your boy Law.
And your boy Tone from across the hall.
And today we're tackling a topic that many people may try to shy away from. Many people may not like us after this, but this is a humanitarian topic, not a left versus right topic. This is a humanitarian topic that we want to touch. This is nothing to do with any type of religions or anything like that. Nothing to do with who you support and everything. We could agree that currently with everything going on in the world today, the last few years, I mean, a lot of stuff is not new stuff. It's just the only thing that's changed is that we now capture it on cell phones. So this is a humanitarian issue that we felt that we finally need to really address. Growing up as a person of color, Hispanic, Puerto Rican that I am, I remember in school, one of my teachers said this comment that I didn't really pick up back then, was that you're a minority in this country unless you are a rich, straight white man. For many years, our history has an ugly past with racism that many try to sweep under the rug, which again, an example of that is the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacres, the Black Wall Street, and even there's a Central Park with there used to be a Black village that used to be there, the internment camps that George Takei lived through. And these events, they try to sweep these events under the rug. And I am a firm believer that history repeats itself if we don't learn from our mistakes in history. It's not good to hide it or sweep it under the rug. Joining us today for this great panel, we want to reach out to a lot of people, and I want to thank everyone who came out. The first person I want to introduce, he's part of Wayward Raven Media Studios. He's a good friend of ours. I want to give it up for Alexander Sapountzis.
How's it going? It's good to be here, and this is something I'm very passionate about, almost to the point of belligerence. But yeah, I can't stand any of the shit that's been going on, and sorry for that language, but it's very personal to me. Being not just being basically a first generation American, someone who, depending on who sees me, I may or may not be part of their tribe, and also my wife is a Black woman, so half my family is Black. Plus again, growing up in New York City, most of my friends growing up were people of color. So this is I've seen things from both sides, and I've tried to kind of give certain people the benefit of the doubt, but there is a line that I'm like, okay, this past this point, it's like you're not just being yourself, you're being an asshole, and it's definitely something that speaks to me. So I mean, I can talk for hours on this, so I'll let everyone else introduce themselves. But yeah, it's
definitely a very, very huge subject, and I'm not going to say it's a touchy subject because it shouldn't be considered a touchy subject. Because again, this is
not touchy.
This is something.
But it's
something we should have conversations about and not shy away, because people try to shy away all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The next person who is on our panel today on the show, she's been a guest on the show before. She's an awesome person. If you've seen her at con, she's always smiling, always warm and welcoming people. She is also the producer behind the Pajingers and Wall Hangers podcast. I want to give it up for Catarina Themyscaria. Catarina.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome back.
Hey, yeah.
Again.
Yes, different topic this time than WW.
Very different.
Now, our next guest, she is an awesome artist. We did a creative series featuring her about her amazing art, what she does in animation and everything, what got her into the creative field. But also, too, if people have been following her, she's also been out there on the front lines, actually been at protests, not just for what's going on in the Asian community, but for also Black Lives Matter as well, and other great causes. I want to give it up and welcome back Miriam Yoo.
Hey everyone, what's up?
What's up?
Thanks
Welcome
for having me.
Hey, welcome back.
So again, I want to thank everyone for being a part of this panel, because this is a topic that has affected everyone, regardless of the melanin of your skin, regardless of your culture or background. So one of the questions that I want to start off is with this is, what has been your experience dealing with racism in this day and age? And Miriam, we will start with you.
For me, it's like, I guess like I think for me it's like gaining more awareness of it. For me, like growing up as being Asian American, it's not really talked about a lot in our community actually. For me, it's kind of like this weird thing where it's always been happening, even in my life. Like it's around me. I've been discriminated in different ways. People ignoring me, and just because of like just being Asian, they assume a lot of different things. But it's like this thing where it's weird that like in my community, like we aren't really aware of it either. So even with these conversations of this, just saying, oh, like there's racism, like so there's a lot of people that don't believe that racism exists in a community either. So it's like this weird thing. I think for me, it's like try to understand more, and even at my identity too, like knowing more that, oh yeah, I am Asian American. Um, it's like I think also maybe because of also how media portrays Asian American, there isn't a lot of portrayals of Asian American in American media at all. So that's something also part of this racism too. There isn't portrayals of us, and but I'm kind of it's cool to see like more stories of Asian American people coming out more, and especially what's been going on, especially right now with the anti-Asian hate attacks. Yeah, it's clear that there's a lot of increase of that. But yeah, people will claim that it's not happening, but it is happening. So, uh, and even for me, yeah, it's been like I've actually, there's people have been pretty like nasty around me. To be honest with you, like someone gave me a middle finger, in the streets. So it's just like it's real. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah.
Law, let's start with you.
So as a mixed race kid, I'm Black, Puerto Rican, Arab American. It's always been a thing where like I try to like show my family as like the depiction of every shade and color of the rainbow, because that's what we are. Like I have, family who is as pale as can be, and I have family who's darker than me, and that's always just been the case for me. But that's how we were raised. We don't really see a lot of the like, oh, you're my brother, you're my sister, whatever the case is. But the rest of the world never really saw that. And growing up as a kid, I was always forced to kind of choose my tribe. Like, you're too dark to be Puerto Rican, or you are Black, but you're not. Like, you have to erase your Puerto Rican identity, kind of thing. And it was always just felt weird and uncomfortable, because it was just like, no, I'm both. Why can't I accept both? Like, I am both. And then just like, especially with now seeing a lot of what we've been seeing in America throughout, of course, the last few years, and especially with the rise of social media and what have you, it's been like just overwhelming, to say the least. Kind of like this this burden that I didn't know I had, and it's like, hey, you are a Black man in America, welcome to the club. And it was like, oh, did not know what that meant, or how little that meant to some people. So it's been an adjustment period. I've been stopped by the police for little to no reason. I have family on both sides of the badge. So it's, I know a lot of people who straight up hate the police, and I'm like, I have family and friends in there who are good cops and know, like, will do what's necessary to like root out the bad apples. But a lot of that time they can't go more than what they already tried to do, and it sucks because the system is broken. So it's I've always felt like I'm torn between this like weird middle ground, whether it be with my own identity, with where I stand, and just trying to find that place where I'm like, yo, we're one people of just, like, why can't we get along,
And like you touched up on that, because again, the mixed, you said Black and Hispanic, something that you see a lot in the Bronx and all that growing up, and it's like, you see, and again, racism is not just white versus Black; it's everyone.
Oh, it's even within our own cultures. Like, colorism is a real thing, and it's,
Yep.
it's apparent from especially, you know, our older generations. So, you know, I implore the younger generations like us who are being more mindful of it and trying to stamp it out before it becomes an issue, you know, for our own kids when we have kids.
Alex.
Yeah, my shit's weird. Like I mentioned before, first generation American. So to most Americans, I'm like ethnically ambiguous. Like they're like, what are you? Like I've gotten everything from Puerto Rican, Dominican, Filipino, and Japanese once, which was like, wow. And depending on how tan I am, I have definitely seen people's reactions change. Like, you know, from like points where I getting thrown against a car by some undercover cops to on the weird side, like, you know, like again, I'm Greek, I'm fluent in Greek, and hearing other Greeks call me Mexican. And it's like, what? But then at the same time, there were times like I had to like lean into the fact that I look Puerto Rican to make it through certain neighborhoods so I wouldn't get jumped, you know, because I'm like, I don't want to be a white kid in this scene too. And it's weak. It's, I mean, I know my story is not as traumatic as some other people's. Like I know like my wife and her situations with police has not as been as humorous as mine, to say the least. And you know, I've had friends who've had much worse situations like that. So I can sympathize, but at the same time, it's given me a weird outsider's view of things because like I can see it from like. I think all I can really say is just like I've seen it happen to so many people, and including my experiences always leaned more weird and comical. I remember one situation too. It's like depending on like I said, if I have tan, you know, if I'm like darker, people automatically assume one thing. I always have people come up to me speaking in Spanish, for instance, and I know that's not as traumatic as like, you know, having a gun pointed at your head, you know, by a police officer, but like, actually, no, that's not, I've had that happen too. It's fucking weird. That's the best I can describe it, man. And I don't even know what to say half the time. Like it's like, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, it's like some people, they look at you and they automatically assume one thing or another. Like, and for me, it's always been uncomfortable is when people reveal themselves to be a racist, not like mustache twirling, cross burning racist, but like diet racist has always been like the thing that I've experienced the most. Like Sebastian, I think you saw this. I posted recently. Went to my bagel shop, right? And the guy at the bagel shop was like, we're talking about just jogging in the neighborhood. I'm like, this is a guy I've seen for years. Cool guy, old school Italian dude. Didn't think anything of it. And he starts talking. I'm like, yeah, you know, my wife and I were looking to buy a house in this neighborhood where he's from. And he's like, oh no, you don't want to move there. And you know, it was cool back when it was Italians, but now it's too mixed. And then he saw my reaction and it's like, oh, no, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's just, you know, now you don't know your neighbors. And I'm like, should I tell my wife to come here? How are you going to feel about that? You know, like right now, my neighbor's you know, Puerto Rican. We got a black couple across the street. I got a Japanese neighbor. It's like, which part of this equation is a problem to you? You know? And like the worst part is like, I thought of so many comebacks, but I didn't want to fight his racism with like a racist joke about Italians, because then it would just been like this perpetual cycle. But it's like, at the same time, like I know there wasn't malice in his heart. You know, it was just some dumbass thing he thought of. You know, and I don't know. It's like that's the type of stuff that kind of sticks out to me more. You know?
Yeah. It's that stuff scares me because it's like, you know, you have people who don't know that they're being racist. And again, I'm gonna just say it right now. It's not just limited to folks who are Caucasian. It's in every culture, and people don't understand or know that they are being racist. Like, I'm gonna be real. Like, there are things I had to learn myself.
Yeah.
In the program, because it's like as I got older, I was like, yeah, that's not good. And a lot of it too is currently with my wife with helping with, and again, you know, some of us don't know how we are treating people of other cultures, and it comes back vice versa. But Catarina, you're up next.
I am first generation American. My parents immigrated from Portugal in the mid 70s, and then my sister and I were both born here. So I did get a little bit of, I'm not going to say it was racism because you can't be racist against me. You can be sexist and you can be prejudiced, and you can just be a shitty person, but you can't be racist with me. But I did get had some difficulties when I started school and wasn't a strong English speaker. And I worked very hard to lose my accent as a child, which I kind of regret now. But I did keep all my Portuguese, so I'm happy about that. So for me, it's more like I grew up in a very multicultural area of Connecticut. So I was surrounded by people of all walks of life and all religions. And it just didn't occur to me that not every place was like that. And then I moved to another town, and there was literally 4 people of color in that school, and they were brothers. That was it. And so I was a witness to a lot of things. And at first, it was always hard to see. And the first time I tried to intervene, the one that was the same age as me, and I'm not saying their names just because he said to me, he said, "You don't speak for me." And I learned a lesson that day, that that's not always my place to interject on these things. I may think that I'm helping. I may think that I'm doing the right thing, but I'm not the one that has to live with the words that come out of my mouth. They do. So I learned a very valuable lesson that day on how to be a good advocate, and that's to just follow their lead. If they give me do you read the cues and say, should I say something or should I leave it alone? And then I'll go from there. And now, as a mother of children who have a Puerto Rican father, I see what their name, I saw what it did for him too. I see what their name brings out in certain people. Like a certain family member of mine who has nothing to say about Puerto Ricans except that he used to own a property in Bridgeport, and they always used to throw out a lot of rice at the beginning of the month when the welfare checks came in. Like microaggression type of bull crap like that. And that's when I realized that I was in a family of people that had taught me things without me knowing that they were teaching me things. And one of the most valuable lessons for myself was to check myself constantly, because I remember being with one of my older cousins. It was like a great aunt or something. And we were driving down the street, and we were going through a very diverse neighborhood of a lot of people out in the streets. And she said, she used to say, make sure your doors are locked, your windows are rolled up, and your doors are locked. Like someone's just, going to bum rush the car or something. And it was maybe, I don't know, I wasn't driving at that point, but I had been driving for a few years. I hadn't been married or a mom yet. And I remember turning onto a street in what was well-known, not great neighborhood, and checking to see if the doors were locked. And I was like, oh, like they got you doing that. They got you doing that. And I don't know if you know the history of Portuguese people, but Portugal and Spain were owned by the same king and queen and are the biggest slave traders on the entire planet. That is something that I don't know if my family in my ancestry, I have no idea if my family was part of that or not. If they partook in it, I have no idea. But it is something that I think has been kind of a thing on Portuguese people that they don't like to address, but something that I'm hyper aware of. And maybe it makes me overly sensitive sometimes, but I'd rather be that than to be callous of the things going around me. So I guess in my long-winded way of saying, I have not had racism against me, but I have been a witness to it. And I wish I knew a better way. I wish I knew a better way for all of us.
Thank you. Tony, we'll close with you, brother.
And just a quick, comment on Alex's point. It's just, there's a thing that we notice that there's just so much unconscious bias that a lot of people have where, it may not be coming from a malicious place, but, we all have to check ourselves and know where it all comes from. Cause we all have it. As we grow up and you learn, your neighborhood and what you need to do to take care of yourself. Those are just things that kind of happen. And as we get older and more knowledgeable, it's just, we have to address it. And that's not everybody. It's like kind of the elephant in the room that some people just don't want to acknowledge that they have unconscious bias. We see it all over the place. So, us as people, doesn't matter what your shade is, you've got to do your best to address it. So just want to throw that in there after listening to what everyone was saying. For me personally, I've been fortunate enough in my life not to be hit with any sort of racism or racial slurs towards me or anything like that. More so of a system that's been built against us. That's kind of what my main experience has been. I have been, I did have I've had like a couple experiences with police officers where, I was wearing a hoodie and I was walking in the middle of the day. It wasn't even nighttime, middle of the day, got pulled over by undercovers. They showed their badges. I had my hands in my pockets and I was pulling my hands out of my pockets and they grabbed my arms thinking I had some sort of firearm, but I had a soft cover science fiction book. The type of person that I am. That's what I'm carrying around when I'm walking around with a hoodie and a hood up. But aside from that, it's mostly been the system, right? So trying to find a job, trying to move up in place, nowadays people are really trying to hone in on that sort of diversity thing and, but before it wasn't like that. So you see my name's Antonio Perez. And so like, you don't know if you're getting the short end of the stick because of your name, or because if you're not going to get picked based off your school or where you're able to go. And that's been my main struggle with some sort of racism or any sort of thing. It's always been trying just to kind of move on up and get myself out of the situations that I'm in. There is no, we don't come from money or there's no help. It's all sort of just kind of pulling, as the conservatives say, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. But like, there's way more to it than just saying that and trying to be all cool about it. Right. There's a lot more to that. And I think, there was a system that was built against us all as we're trying to move up, and where we weren't supposed to be at the dinner party. We're just supposed to be outside looking in, salivating at the scraps. And that's something that I'm hoping as we get older and as our kids get older, they don't have to worry about it. Because my son has a very Spanish name too. They may be dealing with that stuff. And I think it's our best to hope for put ourselves in a society that can outgrow that. And, that's kind of it. I've been fortunate enough to not see too much or be around a bunch of people going to different schools and things like that. I would say the one thing I notice a lot is people just don't know. They don't understand. They don't know your story. They don't know what you've gone through. Some things I like to say, I believe our cultures mesh together with food. I'm a huge believer of that. And something I like to do, it's a joke, but like we do a potluck at my job and I brought a bed me in. So it's, for the folks in the room that don't know what that is, and that's everyone who's listening, that's like slow roasted pork with garlic and salt and adobo for like 12 hours. It's the Spanish man's pulled pork, really. That's really kind of what it is. And I brought it in because it's like, I'm about to bless all these white people with some Spanish food. Like that's the goal right here. Because I think that's the best way to enjoy culture is food. I think food brings us food and music. Food kind of just brings us all together because you get to just kind of understand it because we all got to eat. And that's kind of my way of kind of mending a barrier with people who are not malicious, but just kind of don't understand. Saying, here, try this. This got some flavor that you probably haven't had. And then go to the local spot because I can tell you where the local spot is. And you can also indulge and educate yourself. So that's kind of what I try to do and what my experiences have been.